What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Siddiqui. I'm here with Zach Rizzuto. Christian McCaffrey traded to the 49ers. This really happened, Zach.
Yeah, can you
I
believe
woke up this morning, by the way, like I was sleeping when this happened. I missed the fourth quarter of last night's game. Apparently, Andy Dalton threw 4 touchdowns. Is that what happened last
Yeah,
night?
he did, actually.
Or three touchdowns, whatever it was.
4 touchdowns, 3 picks, and 2 costly ones at the end of the first half.
Jameis, he looking like James Winston out there. Right?
Yep, I can see that comparison.
But I woke up this morning. I was like, this is not real. This is the fake Adam Schefter account. This is not what's actually happening.
This is the Tom Brady's retiring account.
It's literally it happened. Christian McCaffrey is a 49er. San Francisco gave up a bunch of picks for Christian McCaffrey, none of which included a first rounder, which makes sense. He is a running back after all. Yeah. What are your first thoughts on this trade?
I don't mind it. I think Christian McCaffrey's Christian McCaffrey. I think regardless of where he went, there's not anybody that's going to start over Christian McCaffrey, I don't think. So regardless of where he went, he was obviously going to have a good workload. But this is actually, it might be an ideal landing spot if you think about it. Obviously you don't want to overreact or underreact to anything, but it seems like this is already a much better offense than he was in Carolina, which if that's the standard that we're holding it to, then yes, this is an ideal landing spot. But it's a good offense with a bunch of other weapons where, Christian McCaffrey was the only one on the Panthers offense really capable of producing at all, whether it was for fantasy related or if it was just putting points on the board or moving the ball downfield. So I think that Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco is going to be a really nice piece. It's too bad the Jeff Wilson hype train. Yeah, I think it's pulled in the station. It's not going anymore. They've become handcuffs at this point. I think Christian McCaffrey can only be better than he's been.
Elijah Mitchell's now a handcuff, right? You've been holding him on your IR spot, hoping that he comes back soon. He's just a handcuff at this point. He's a relatively high upside handcuff, right? Like he's one of the high end ones because you know that he's going to be the guy if Christian McCaffrey were to miss time. But that's all he is at this point. I don't think he's going to have much standalone value because if he maybe like caught some balls and stuff like that, maybe he can be. But Christian McCaffrey is going to be doing all the ball catching in San Francisco.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Out of this backfield. You look at what Christian McCaffrey has already done this year. He's the RB4 in fantasy points per game. He's third among running backs in scrimmage yards. He was in one of the worst offenses in the NFL and was doing that, right?
Yeah.
He scored 3 times in 6 weeks. Not bad for the Panthers offense, right? Mm-hmm. The Rams last week, they knew they had to stop Christian McCaffrey, and he still averaged 5.31 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Okay. So who else were the Rams trying to defend in that game with PJ Walker and Jacob Eason in at quarterback? Right. And he was still able to get it done. Right? Dumpster fire of a team.
Yeah, I saw somewhere, I don't know how true this was, or if this was like taken halfway through the game, partway through the game, but I saw that PJ Walker attempted 16 passes or something like that, and only one of them traveled beyond the line of scrimmage. Like, yes, is that a true stat that I saw? So it's like,
yeah. So on a bunch of plays, they had both Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard in on the same game, and like they would like hand it off to Chuba with Christian McCaffrey lining up as a wide receiver, just to kind of ease him into the game. But they were not even trying last week.
No.
DJ Moore led. If I'm not mistaken, this is hilarious. DJ Moore had like 75% of the team's air yards last week, and he had like 30 total air yards.
This is crazy.
I'm not even kidding. So, I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, to answer your question of who else were the Rams going to be defending, nobody. Not even DJ Moore can escape that type of offense. It's just horrendous. And the weird thing is, I didn't think the Panthers were going to be this, like, the bad team this year. I didn't think that was going to be the case.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, but Baker was a lot worse than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, that was the start really of their downfall.
The offensive line was solid. They had a solid offensive line, and that's part of the reason why McCaffrey was able to, get some runs off, even though, you have to be a good offensive line in order to do what he did. They did with him, even though the entire defense knows exactly who's getting the ball on every play. At least with Christian McCaffrey, you didn't know whether he was going to run out of the backfield, run a route out of the backfield or carry the ball. That's a good thing. And now San Francisco is going to have that advantage now, right? When Jeff Wilson's in the backfield, you're not really worried about him catching the ball.
No.
You're only defending him if it's a run play. But look at the last 3 weeks: 9 targets, 12 targets, 8 targets for Christian McCaffrey. I don't think he's going to see like 10 targets a game in San Francisco, right?
Right.
But his efficiency as one of the best running backs in the NFL is going to go through the roof. A good offensive line, a good run scheme, outside zone, other weapons the defense has to pay attention to, right? Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle. They traded for him. They're going to use him. And, Kyle Shanahan got a new weapon now.
Oh, yeah.
I can see his carries going up, though. Like the last couple of weeks, he's only had like 13, 14 carries, right? I can see that going up a little bit. I can see the targets go down slightly on this offense. His snap share potentially going down a little bit. But the touchdowns and the efficiency, it's going to make up for it.
I think so, absolutely. And it's, you talk about, maybe he'll get more carries and less targets. We talk about how targets have a premium. But I don't think it's going to matter because it's a much, much better offense than Christian McCaffrey's been operating in, not only just this season, but his whole career. It's just, it looks so good. Imagine, and this kind of unrelated, but imagine this offense with Trey Lance at quarterback. Can you imagine? Like, it would have been so awesome. Jimmy G, he'll get the job done. It's not going to affect Christian McCaffrey, who's taking snaps at this point. Between given the choice between Trey Lance and Jimmy G, it's actually been pretty similar from what we've seen. So he'll be fine. But I just think about that. How that could be if they added Christian McCaffrey and had Trey Lance. There would be an insane offense. But I think that there's no reason to worry about any workload decrease, because if the workload decreases, quantity might decrease, but quality will increase.
Yeah. Exactly. And you see what these running backs have done, before Christian McCaffrey got there. Elijah Mitchell, who's a much better running back than Jeff Wilson, he was averaging 4.9 yards a carry before he got hurt. Jeff Wilson, was up there too this year. 4.7 yards a carry last season. The year before that, 4.8 yards a carry. Mostert, 5 yards a carry. Jeff Wilson, 5 yards a carry the year before that. Mostert, Breida, 5.6 yards a carry, 5.1 yards a carry. The year before that, Matt Breida, 5.3 yards a carry. So you get the point, right? This is an efficient run game with guys who are just average guys at the running back
Are they
position.
Jags? I don't know. No, I would say Elijah Mitchell's a Jag, but yeah.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, right? Like I tweeted this out today, and I said that these good running backs who have low draft capital, they're not safe. Right?
No.
James Robinson, you draft Travis Etienne. Elijah Mitchell, you trade for Christian McCaffrey. Who else? I had one more. I had another guy there. Another obvious one. I forgot who it was. But you kind of get the point, right? So just a dynasty reminder. Dameon Pierce, maybe he's next.
No,
despite how good he's looking.
No, don't do that.
Despite how good he's looking.
Pierce shares.
Well, listen, if you're in dynasty, you have to kind of understand what the situation can be. That yes, you can get production from him this year.
Yeah.
Right. But don't over invest, unless it's for the cheap, which you won't get him for cheap, right? At this point. You got to understand what the draft capital means. It always does. Michael Carter. Thank you, Sean. Sean coming through in the chat. Appreciate you, Sean. Michael Carter was the other one.
How do you miss that one? He's on your team.
I know, right? Maybe I'm just, I'm just really.
You've been talking about Christian McCaffrey all day.
Christian McCaffrey, but also, I'm thinking about Elijah Moore too, and we'll get to Elijah Moore in a second. But I did want to say real quick that CMC might not play this week. I would assume that he's going to play. My assumption, he's going to play. He's going to get some snaps. I don't think he's going to get 75% of snaps, but I would assume he'll be out there for a little bit, maybe in the goal line, stuff like that. I think Ian Rappaport tweeted that out, that he might see some goal line packages. I don't know where that report came from. I don't know where he got that from. Who knows if that's legit or not, but I do think he's going to be out there. If I have Christian McCaffrey and I don't have one of the top high-end options, I'm going to play Christian McCaffrey because I'm just going to assume that he's going to get some goal line work. He's had one goal line carry this entire year.
Man.
Okay. And the 49ers have had, I think it was 11 or 12 goal line carries this year. Right. So he's going to get his. What about Jimmy Garoppolo? You have to think that he gets a bump here, right? He already has good weapons, and now he gets one of the best weapons in the NFL, if not the best weapon in the NFL, out of the backfield. All of his guys are healthy right now, and I already liked him this week. Mm-hmm. Moving forward, though, he's probably at least in the top 15, right? Some top 12 weeks.
I think he has to be, because this offense just got I mean, they had the run game going already. But with Christian McCaffrey, it's now a completely different animal. And we know Kyle Shanahan's going to draw up some nice plays and get Christian McCaffrey utilized in a way that's much better than even he was being used in Carolina. I think the whole offense takes a step forward. The only guys that might get hurt would be the pass catchers. Deebo could take a step back in terms of his passing and his receiving production, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say that's going to happen until I see it happen. There's a chance, but I'm not going to say anything because Deebo's a really good talent too. He's almost like Christian McCaffrey, just at wide receiver. But with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he absolutely gets a boost. Because before he was dumping off the guys that weren't really, playmakers after the catch, and this is now the premier playmaker after the catch. You talk about the Yak Bros as receivers for the Niners. Now they have Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. It's going to be rough riding for a bunch of defenses move forward. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely going to benefit from Christian McCaffrey. I think you can move him up into the top 12 this week, definitely against the Chiefs. And in the future, like you said, I don't think top 12 is out of the question anymore.
I'm with you, man. Now let's move on to the Jets. Elijah Moore, after not getting targeted at all last week, well, really one target that didn't count because of a penalty, he's requested a trade. And a lot of Jets fans, and I'm a Jets fan, okay, a lot of Jets fans are butthurt about this. And I'm a Jets fan, but I will always, always, always be on the player's side when it comes to this kind of stuff. If Moore doesn't put up numbers now, his next contract isn't going to be what it can when he knows what he's capable of, right? I understand the Jets are winning right now, and that's great, but his livelihood literally depends on whether he produces now or not. If the Jets win games, guess who makes more money? Woody Johnson. Okay. This is the NFL where players are getting money. They are getting paid. This isn't college football. This isn't high school football where the team comes over everything else. Sure. But in the NFL, I don't think that should be the case. In the NFL, it's a business, right? And I'd rather have these players win than these owners in this context, right? Like the owners deserve their money. They built a business and that's great. And they'll get their money. But Elijah Moore is trying to control his own destiny as he should. That's me.
Yeah. I think that's a completely fair analysis of it. You can be butthurt about it. Yes, we thought Elijah Moore was going to be a much bigger part of this offense coming into the season, and it looked really good. A lot of Jets fans really rally around him. I don't know how attached you were to Elijah Moore coming into the season. I know you had high hopes. Yeah, you had high hopes.
Extremely attached. He was one of my biggest misses this year in terms of fantasy. He was probably like one of my biggest misses, if not my biggest miss, in terms of like him, like, hey guys, you got to draft him. Right? He was like one of my must draft guys. Yeah. And he went from that to having 0 targets this past week.
That it's just an unprecedented fall off, and if that's the way it's going to be, I do agree with what you're saying. At this point, it does become a business. If he's not going to be doing anything to up his value or, even maintain a decent value, then you don't want that as a player. I completely understand what you're saying. I don't know where he's going to go. A couple people say that Dallas could be a destination. I don't think there's much there because there's already a bunch of receivers there. James Washington's going to be coming back. I'm not sure how he'd work in, but hopefully he could get to a team where he's going to be getting points. At this point, what do you think you're doing with Elijah Moore? Like, have you dropped him at this point? Like, if you still have him, do you keep him on the bench and hope for the best?
I'd say, like, a bunch of people did drop Elijah Moore. If he was dropped, I'd pick him up. Our boy Hummy in our league picked him up for like $54. Like 54% of his fab last night, and no one else bid on him, which is a terrible feeling. I just texted him right before the podcast, and he said he was going on a trip with his wife now and his dog, and I said, "Hey man, do you have any more? Do you have any money left to spend on this trip? Because you burnt all of it on Elijah Moore." But it doesn't, like, Robert Saleh just did come out and say that they're not trading him. That's what they're saying. Who knows what's reality? They're saying that they're not going to trade him and that, he won't play this week and that he'll be back in the building. Oh, he's already in the building right now, but, he'll be back in a normal, game week setting next week. We'll see what happens there. But either way, I'll pick up. I won't let Elijah Moore just sit on the waiver wire during the situation because you never know what will happen. A team might call and give them an offer they can't refuse, right? Just in case he ends up going to a good team. Like you said, Dallas or Green Bay, a team like that would be amazing. This week, like Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, like, they get upgrades, sure, but they're going up against Denver. So not really a fan of either of these guys this week. I would expect the target share to go up, but like I'm not sure how effective they're going to be.
Yeah.
I expect them to try to run the ball, play good defense, and try to get out of that game with a win and go 5-2. Russell Wilson's banged up also. He said he has a Wolverine-like healing, which might allow him to play with that hamstring injury. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, as long as he eats, a few Danger Witch sandwiches, I'm sure he'll be fine coming into this weekend.
Yeah, I don't lose sight of the fact, like I said, I think yesterday on the podcast, that the Broncos tend to pull their opponents down to mediocrity with them. And you talk about the upgrade for Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis. The upgrade might have to wait a week, because
I agree. But their defense is good, though. I'll give them that. They have, especially their secondary. Pat Surtain has been holding it down, right, as the number one corner in shadow coverage on his side. Like, he's been doing his thing.
Yeah, no, you don't want to take any credit away from the defense. The defense is doing their part. It's just the offense. And it seems like regardless of who they're playing against, the offense, even though they're completely inept, always have a chance, to go up with a score. And that's a credit to the defense, 100%. But yeah, I think Elijah Moore, I would hold him if you happen to still have him.
I would try to.
It's this time of year, right before the trade deadline, where the waiver wire becomes a really useful tool for you. If you saved up that fab, if you have Kenneth Walker, I'm assuming you're not paying attention to the waiver wire anymore because you got him on the waiver wire. But paying attention to the waiver wire is key right about now because all these players are moving. Elijah Moore can move; he could be on the waiver wire. Just keep an eye out. Like we know, I think Deontay Foreman was on the waiver wire, happened to be in our league, and in another league, I forget. But definitely pay attention to that as things keep moving around.
Yeah, Deontay Foreman was already rostered, and then someone picked up.
Was it Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba Hubbard.
Right. Okay,
last night. Yeah. Or actually, no, he was on waivers. I think somebody dropped him, and then someone picked him up off of waivers for like $0. Which is great. But these guys are going to be flex plays at best moving forward. Like this team is trash. This offense is going to be bad.
Yeah.
I kind of and on top of that, I see a committee. So a committee on a bad offense, like it's never a good thing unless the talent that you're talking about is through the roof, like Christian McCaffrey was.
Yeah.
And he was getting all the opportunity as well.
Don't let this Christian McCaffrey news and everything, distract you from the fact that we just had the highest scoring Thursday night football game of the season last night. Like that was just such a refresher.
It was entertaining. It was a very entertaining game.
It was so much better than the other games that we've seen. And of course it comes from 2-4 squads. I wouldn't have really seen that coming.
I'm going to buy one of those like moving picture frames. Like, the ones where you can have like an animation or like a, what I'm saying? Like, and I'm going to get that video, that like 3-second video of Andy Dalton after he throws the pick six, turning around and having dude jump into a somersault into the end zone in the background. What an amazing video right there.
Yeah.
Like, that was like one of the best camera shots I've ever seen in my life.
And
I'm getting that.
That was a full send, no holds barred somersault into the end zone. Like I think it didn't look comfortable when he landed. Like he went flying. I think he got more air than he anticipated.
Oh man, dude, like it was hilarious. But listen, Andy Dalton, at the end of the day, like he put up numbers, dude. I picked him up in our Superflex league, and I didn't start him. It was a Thursday night. I'm like, I've been every single QB2. I lost Trey Lance in that league. Every single QB2 that I've started has averaged like 5 points.
Yeah.
It's been bad. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to start Andy Dalton, but there he goes, throwing up 30 points on my bench. Great. But pretty entertaining game. Benjamin got it done, despite only playing on 58% of snaps. He was an every down back last week. But Keontae Ingram got in on the action a bit this week, last night. Still got his 17 touches and got it done in a big way for you. So, hope you listened. Hope you didn't get discouraged after last week. Him not putting up the points, but getting all the utilization that you're looking for underneath that, right?
Oh yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, he caught 10 of 14 targets for 103 yards this week for a 50% target share. Do you think that's sustainable, Zach?
I don't know if that's sustainable, but I think it's going to be relatively high. I don't think it's going to be 50, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 30%. I don't think that's too far out of the question because Kyler Murray just dialed right into him. It's his first game back. You know what I'm saying? He dialed right in.
I would be surprised if it's at 30%.
You would?
I think 50% was just insane. DeAndre Hopkins didn't get 10 plus targets in any game last year. He hasn't seen, well, he actually saw one 13 target game like late in the season after he came back from injury.
Right.
But early on in the year, when he was healthy, he didn't see one double-digit target game. Rondale Moore and Zach Ertz combined for 5 targets in this game. Robbie Anderson hardly played. I'm selling DeAndre Hopkins, and we're going to talk about him on the Wednesday episode next week, no doubt. Rondale Moore, he played on the outside in this game all game long. AJ Green lost his job. Robbie, when Robbie is ready, he'll be on the outside. Moore will move back inside, and targets will start distributing. Cliff Kingsbury is so weird, dude. He's so weird with his personnel groupings. It's like, all right, Rondale Moore, like who cannot do anything on the outside. Let me move you to the outside in this game.
Yeah.
Like what?
Rondale Moore, 5'7". Let's run him on the outside.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
of course he's going to get 2 targets. Of course he's going to get 2 targets.
My God.
Are you kidding me? Did you see the fade in the end zone? Why are you giving Rondale Moore a fade in the end zone?
With DeAndre Hopkins,
and of course,
I know.
And it was offensive pass interference on that play. Of course, it's going to be offensive pass interference.
He's going to require 5'7".
He's going to require to push off.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
To catch that ball. He
sense.
Caught it. It was out of bounds, but he needed help.
Yeah,
he needed to push off,
and it wasn't even a catch. I don't think anyway because he was bobbling.
Oh, wasn't? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. No, exactly. He caught it, but it was out of bounds. He bobbled out of bounds. That's right. That's right.
But with Rondale Moore, if you when you sat down to watch this game and the first drive started for the Cardinals, Rondale Moore caught that one pass for 31 yards.
Yeah, he
absolutely
did.
Quiet after that. Like I was like, here we go. Rondale Moore is gonna show up, take a bunch of targets from DeAndre Hopkins, and that was it. That was it. Yeah, that was it for the night. I couldn't believe it.
But I'm buying Rondale Moore. I'm selling DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not saying I'd rather have Rondale Moore over DeAndre Hopkins. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that one is undervalued right now, one is overvalued after this game. That's all I'm saying.
And you
Chris
have
Olave. Yeah, go ahead.
You have all the selling points you need to sell DeAndre Hopkins. Now that you're talking about
it.
You have every single selling point that you need. Not only do you have the usage and the target share, you have the production to go with it. And it was everyone saw it. It was Thursday Night Football. It's not like you're watching.
It was sweet.
It's not like a 1:00 game where you could tune in somewhere else and completely miss the fact that DeAndre Hopkins was getting hyper targeted. No, this was prime time. It was national television. Everybody saw it, so it just makes it that much sweeter, that much easier to sell him. I think
it was sweet. Chris Olave, he was doing Chris Olave things. 28% target share, 12 targets. He got it done for you. I did trade Chris Olave away yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
I added Ramondre Stevenson to that deal, and I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I sent that out before yesterday's podcast in the morning, and I mentioned that I sent some trades in for Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it was accepted. So I'm happy, especially since Damian Harris returned to a full practice yesterday. I think that's going to revert to a little bit of a timeshare. Ramondre's still going to be a low-end RB2. He's still going to be solid. He's still going to have his games. Chris Olave is a stud. But listen, I'm trying to get that high-end, wide receiver 1, that solid wide receiver 1 that I'm looking for. I did lose Hollywood Brown in that league. So I was looking to kind of, get back right. I was hoping I would get Keenan Allen back. But apparently Keenan Allen, he might be held out another week. He might hold himself out another week. He was asked yesterday that since his bye is next week, is it better to give it another week of rest? And it seems like that beat reporter gave him some ideas. And he's like, you know what? No, literally, he was like, you know what? This might be a good idea. So now he's considering that. So thanks a lot.
Maybe we can continue to leave Faraz's fantasy team shorthanded.
And he said if that's the best decision, that's what we'll do. So he hasn't practiced in full yet this week. It's all been limited practices so far. We'll see what happens today. But just keep in mind that he might not play, and he might not be back until week 9. It's possible.
Yeah.
Now,
so this is for me.
That might be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, maybe in the long run. Yeah, but
That kind of sucks.
It sucks because I'm starting to question whether age is now starting to factor into it. Like, we knew he wasn't necessarily the most durable receiver, even before this, but this is just making me, a little bit leery of him long term now. I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do. If he's going to be available, obviously availability is like number one, not only for the NFL, but also for your fantasy team. If he's not available, you're really getting hung out to dry by Keenan Allen right now. And I'm worried that, the production might not be similar to what we know Keenan Allen to do when he comes back. Obviously, that remains to be seen. It's just speculation. You could say that maybe because I'm saying that it's time to buy Keenan Allen, but I don't think you're going to be able to sell him right now because there's just so many questions surrounding him. And the offense, obviously for the Chargers hasn't looked that fantastic either. So for me, if I'm a Keenan Allen manager, I'm like, I'm kind of stuck. Now this is another hold situation where you're just hoping something goes well. And I'd be looking to sell if he has a good game. I think anytime when he comes back.
I wouldn't. I would say this, like, if when he comes, like, if he holds out this week and he comes back after the bye, that means he is definitely 100%. You know what I'm saying? Because he's been held out. He did tweak his hamstring a couple weeks ago, so that completely delayed the process. They were trying to get him back too early, and he came back and tweaked it, and he doesn't want to do that again. So he's trying to make sure that he's completely right. And if he doesn't miss this week, then now if he comes back this week, then you're worried because you're like, all right, I hope he doesn't tweak it in this game, right? And he had the bye next week. So, if you're chilling, like you're not like 1-5 and you need a win, or 2-4 and you need a win, then you might be like, all right, well, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, I'll still hopefully be in it in 2 weeks and he'll be back and he'll help me. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I'm looking at it. Maybe I'm just a glass half full type of guy.
Maybe I'm a glass half empty. I
don't think so, Zach. I think you're a relatively positive guy.
Relatively.
I do.
Except for Keenan Allen right now. I'm just looking at him. And I'm just happy that I don't have him. I'm just watching what you're going through. And that's just making me feel
see what I'm going through, bro.
Yeah.
I'm holding it together. I'm holding it together. Darren Waller. Darren Waller, he's likely going to be out this week with that hamstring injury. Hunter Renfrow, he was also added to the injury report with a hip. Maybe we see another Mac Hollins day. Maybe a good little DFS play at the very least against the Texans. He has that ceiling. You never know. Just wanted to put that out there. Kenny Pickett, he's cleared the concussion protocol, the fastest clearance in NFL history, and he will give his receiving core an upgrade this week against Miami on Sunday Night Football. I'm so much happier that I'll be seeing Kenny Pickett on Sunday night than I am Mr. Trubisky.
Oh yeah, not only with Kenny Pickett, but also in that same game, Tua's going to be back. So now it's two concussed quarterbacks. It's a concussion bowl.
Dude, this is
we have the concussion bowl. I just realized that.
The concussion bowl. That's terrible, dude. On NFL primetime Sunday night.
Oh yeah,
dude. This is a PR nightmare waiting to happen tonight.
Will they be able to walk off the field under their own power? Find out Sunday night.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh goodness. All right. I think that's about time we get to wide receiver rankings. Let's do it. All right. Let's see. We got Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp both on bye this week. So Tyreek Hill is going to be at number 1 against the Steelers defense, who is banged up, has given up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. They did their thing against Tom Brady last week, but I think they're not going to be able to sustain that every single week. Shorthanded, that they're already not that good in the secondary. I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be able to do their thing. I have Jalen Waddle here in my top 5 as well at number 5. So I think both these guys are going to be able to do their thing.
Yeah, with Tua back in the lineup, you can't bet against them. We saw what they did against the Ravens, and the Ravens
300 receiving yards, more than 300 receiving, 200 receiving yards combined last week. They already had a 300-yard combined receiving game into week 2, right? So yeah, this is going to be another potential monster game for these two guys.
And you can't bet against Tyreek Hill. So suddenly it seems like, he's just being targeted regardless of who's quarterback. And he's just such a weapon now. And I said he looks a little bit better, I think, on the Dolphins than he did on the Chiefs. Obviously, he looked great on the Chiefs, but his production looks, much more sustainable. It's not as touchdown dependent, which is really kind of refreshing, because once those touchdowns come, Tyreek Hill might be number 1, even with Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs playing that same week.
I hear that, man. Davante Adams, he's at number 2 here over Jamar Chase at number 3. Houston has given up big games to perimeter wide receivers this year. And every number 1 wide receiver who's gone against Houston has done their thing. So I expect Davante to go ham coming off his bye week.
Yeah, and it's good to see that he's playing. He didn't get any suspension, for pushing the cameraman. So that's good news if you're Davante Adams manager. I don't see a scenario where he doesn't get it done for you this week. And I think there's a better chance that he gets it done in a big way than just a regular way. I'd bet on him to go over like 25 points faster than I bet on him to go under 25 points.
Jamar at 3, like I said, I like him against Atlanta. He might get shadow coverage against AJ Terrell, but he hasn't been amazing this year. So
No.
I think Chase can handle that pretty easily. If he doesn't get shadowed, Casey Hayward is on IR right now, and they have some backup corners in there. And Atlanta's defense just hasn't been great this year in terms of their secondary. So
Right.
Jamar could potentially blow up once again this week. And with T Higgins back, some coverage is going to have to shift either way, right? So having both these guys on the field is going to be a big deal for Joe Burrow in that offense.
And the Bengals offense has found its footing. It seems like, maybe a trip back to Louisiana was all they needed, to get back and right the ship. Because we have Jamar Chase ranked here in the top 5, actually top 3, he will now put up another 12-point performance. Because as soon as we moved him out of the top 10, he went bananas. So we'll see how that goes. I do like Jamar Chase in this matchup. It should be good, especially with T. Higgins back. Like you said, the coverage will be shifted. You won't be able to focus as much on Jamar Chase. And it looked like things were clicking a lot better. I expect that to continue now for the rest of the season with the Bengals offense.
It was really between CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase at 3 and 4. I mean, it's pretty close. With Dak Prescott back, I think CeeDee Lamb, is going to be able to do his thing, maintain his league-leading target share. He has been running a lot of his routes out of the slot this year, but he runs on the outside as well. So, the Lions are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. So CeeDee Lamb is going to be able to do his thing, and I expect this game to be pretty high scoring.
Yeah, ideally it would be high scoring. It seems like the Lions are either there and they're scoring a ton, or they're just getting beat. We'll see.
Right, and in this game, right, like Dallas's defense, they might actually come through at home, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to watch.
That's the problem. So if the Cowboys go up, they might not even be concerned about doing anything. If the I hate the games like last night. Talking about the Cardinals and the Saints, it's a high scoring game on paper, but for the Cardinals offense, it wasn't, because there were 2 pick sixes. And when the defense does that, the script gets flipped completely. They talked about, it was like the first snaps of the season, besides like 2 that the Cardinals were running with a lead, on offense. So I hate when that happens. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened in this game. So maybe temper expectations, but definitely on paper, CeeDee Lamb, I like him at 4. I think he's upside. It's at, where he's ranked at 4, but there's a chance that this could kind of fall into a game script that's not as conducive as we might have imagined going into it.
Yeah, and I have Jalen Waddle here at number 5. He runs most of his routes, against Levi Wallace on the left side. Levi Wallace has given up more than half a fantasy point per route run against him, and quarterbacks have been targeting him 27% of the time. So Jalen Waddle is in for a good game this week. Deebo Samuel, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of the Christian McCaffrey stuff to mention him to affect him this week. But I have him at 6, which is the highest I've ever had Deebo Samuel. But I'm expecting big things in this game against Kansas City. Kansas City, I feel like, is going to go up in this game. I feel like they're going to be able to handle this 49ers secondary, who's banged up right now. They might not, and most likely won't, have Charvarius Ward this week, who left the game last week with a groin injury. They already are down Emmanuel Mosley, who's out for the year. Jimmy Ward, his hand is he has a club hand right now because he broke his hand last week. So, this is a situation where, Kansas City can go up. And because Kansas City has also given up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers this year, I think Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and we'll see where I have him ranked in a little bit. I expect these guys to go off this week.
Again. I think, definitely. I think that we're kind of in the eye of the Christian McCaffrey storm. We're not going to get hit until next week. As far as, the usage effects on Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So that is good news for Deebo Samuel owners. This is a marquee matchup. If the trade happened earlier in the week, then I'd be a little bit less inclined to rank him maybe as high as we have him. But I think that Deebo Samuel is going to get it done. And like you said, if they go up, we could see another game script like last week's. And that was against the Falcons. So we'll see how it goes.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, I have him here at number 7. It's one of those situations where he's coming back from injury, but he did get full practice in. Cooper Kupp was fine, against this Dallas defense. Obviously, it's Cooper Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp's going to get it done more often than not. But even coming into that game, they were a little bit vulnerable coming out of the, defending the slot compared to the outside, especially on that left perimeter where Trayvon Diggs lives. But for now, going into this game, like, I'm pretty happy about it because Dallas has given up the 4th most fantasy points to slot wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. They've given up the 10th most fantasy points to slot wide receivers this season. So I'm, perfectly fine ranking Amon-Ra St. Brown this high, and even against good defenses, he should be able to get it done.
And the Lions' offense has been a bit inconsistent, this season, but there's no reason to think I don't think they're going to look like they did against the Patriots. That was just an absolute bomb. They didn't do anything. That was just an off day. I don't think it's going to be another one of those situations, even though Dallas's defense is very good. I think that the Lions will be just fine. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he's healthy, he's going to be getting the ball fed to him a lot, especially if they're down. If that's the case, I'll be playing from down. Amon-Ra St. Brown is maybe the receiver to have in this game if Dallas will go up. We talk about CeeDee Lamb and his upside. Get the receiver getting a team up on another team, does well for half the game. The receiver that's doing the catching up does well the entire game. So that's what Amon-Ra St. Brown is this week.
There you go. I have Tyler Lockett at number 8 this week. That's pretty high. And he had a down week last week, but I'm betting on a bounce back week in week 7. Lockett runs most of his perimeter routes on the right side, and that's where J.C. Jackson usually lines up, and he got benched last week, by the way, from that spot. The Chargers are giving up the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers on that right perimeter. And Preciser, who is our analytics and algorithm-driven data platform, has this game at a 53-point total, with the Seahawks having an implied total of 24 points. So I'm expecting Lockett to do his thing this week.
Yeah, I like it. You talk about what we expected for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf last week can be the same expectation this week against the Chargers. Chargers have a bunch of stars on defense, and they're either injured or underperforming. You just talk about J.C. Jackson being benched. Joey Bosa's out for a while. This game should be a shootout, and that's what we said about, was it Seahawks and Cardinals last week? So if it comes to this week, I think Tyler Lockett, it seems like he's the better, more consistent producer. I think DK Metcalf has the upside, but he hasn't cracked that just yet. We have DK Metcalf at 9, but yeah, I like both of the receivers. You can't go wrong with either of these guys in your lineups.
And I just want to mention our sponsor for this episode, Preciser. Thanks for them for sponsoring this episode. They are a data analytics and algorithm-driven sports prediction platform that helps you give you an edge in DFS and fantasy and sports betting. So I'd recommend checking them out. They have a free package that you can check out. But right now, you can get their pro package that offers all of their data for 30% off the first 3 months. If you use code UpperHand, that moves this package to only $6.99 a month from the usual $9.99 a month. So pretty affordable, right? And that should give you the upper hand. Their website is preciser.io, and that's code UpperHand. I'll have the link in the description of the podcast and YouTube. All right, moving on to DK Metcalf. Similar situation, right? The Chargers themselves have given up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. Specifically perimeter wide receivers. They're giving up the 9th most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers as a whole over the last 4 weeks, and to wide receivers in general, the 11th most over the past 4 weeks. So the Chargers are vulnerable defense, especially in the secondary. So I think Geno Smith is going to have a big day. I think he's going to bounce back, actually throw some touchdowns this week opposed to last week. At least he didn't throw any picks. But I think both these wide receivers, who I had in my top 10 last week too, I think hopefully they should be able to come through this week. D. Higgins at number 10 against Atlanta. Similar reasons for Jamar Chase. Casey Hayward's on IR. If Jamar Chase does end up getting shadowed by AJ Terrell, T. Higgins is going to have a big day. I think this is the situation. This is a situation where he's actually practicing in full going into this week. I think it seems like he's practiced on a Wednesday for the first time in like several weeks. We talked about that yesterday, but he's going to see a lot of Darren Hall. Okay, Darren Hall is not going to be able to hold T Higgins. Okay, who?
Who?
And this is a situation where AJ Terrell was being targeted at 22% of the routes run against him, but this week it might end up being Darren Hall. Now, I'm not going to rank T Higgins above Jamar Chase because we know who the more dynamic wide receiver is, but T Higgins still going to be in my top 10 this week. I think that's well deserved, and this offense and Atlanta's offense, they could kind of go head to head a little bit in this game.
Yeah.
Atlanta's been one of the highest scoring offenses, believe it or not, in the NFL. They've been scoring a lot of games. They've been in a lot of games, a lot of close games. So if this is close and it's high scoring, it's going to benefit both teams.
Yeah,
from a fantasy perspective.
And it's good news for the receivers in those games, definitely. When T Higgins plays and he's healthy, he's a no doubt, I think, low end wide receiver one.
Yeah,
like, no doubt. Because I think, let's see, in 4 games that he's been relatively healthy, he has 10 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, and 9 targets, which came last week against New Orleans. I'm happy with him at 10. I think this is a really good ranking for him, especially against Atlanta. You do mention that they're 2 very high-scoring offenses, which is funny to think because we're talking about Atlanta as a high-scoring offense with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Discussion for a different day. At the end of the day, they look really good, both teams on offense, and neither of their defenses really stand out. I mean, AJ Terrell obviously in Atlanta, but AJ Terrell can't cover T Higgins and Jamar Chase in one play. So one of them is going to be getting it done. So I think that both of these guys have, top 10 potential, and we have them ranked that way.
I have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin coming in at 11 and 12. A lot of teammates in the top 12 this week. So we got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the top 12. We got Jamar Chase and T Higgins in the top 12, and we have Tal Lockett and TK Metcalf in the top 12. That must be a record.
And Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill in the top 5.
Oh, that's right, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Looking at that now, yeah,
that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, I have both these guys, kind of doing their thing this week. I think this is a little bit of a redemption game for Tom Brady because, he wanted to get more done last week and he didn't. Mike Evans does run most of his routes on that left side. And lately, Carolina hasn't been great over there, giving up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the left perimeter. And then you got Chris Godwin, who I think is going to have a big game in this one.
Yeah.
Calling it right now. 8 catches. 97 yards and a touchy. No, that's not how you say it.
A tutty.
It's not a touchy. A touchy is something else.
It's a tutty, I think.
Tutty. A tutty.
A touchy. Nice. That doesn't sound weird at all. No, but
no. I had a fun night last night, so it was just remnants of that. Sorry about
lots
that.
Of touchies.
lots of touchies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
try following that up, Zach. Go ahead.
Yeah, they will have the game that they were supposed to have last week against the Steelers. These Buccaneers receivers will do their thing. Tom Brady will look more like Tom Brady. And that's the end of my discussion. I can't beat touchies. But this is, rarely do you get this type of draw where you can just reload and get the exact same matchup almost, and have the exact same projections. So this is their chance to get right and do right by the fantasy community. Let's get things on track, guys, and look like the Buccaneers this week. I think they do it this week, obviously. The Panthers offense has no firepower anymore.
Mike Williams at number 13 here might be, and I'm ranking, by the way, I don't have Keenan Allen in these rankings. I took him out because I'm assuming he doesn't play. Because
if he does play, where does he slide in?
If he does play, Mike Williams is moving down. Okay, because Seattle has actually been pretty vulnerable to slot wide receivers this year, and they're better on the outside. What's his name? The dude, he would go up against Kobe Bryant, right? The living Kobe Bryant on the Seahawks, who defends the slot. What's his name? I'm gonna look because he deserves Seahawks corner.
Tyreek Woolen.
Yeah, dude. Tyreek Woolen, man. He deserves a shout out. And that's why I wanted to find his name because the dude has been playing very well this year. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I wasn't really focused on corners. I was focused on like offensive players, but like I heard good things at the Senior Bowl, and the dude is showing up. He's playing very well.
Yeah.
He's been living on that left side for the most part this year, and he's been doing his thing. So both him, what? I just realized something. The Seahawks have their nickel corner's name is Kobe Bryant, and their right perimeter's corner's name is Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Man, they got some star power there.
They got some.
They got some
Dude,
star power. And then
what is
Tyreek
going
Woolen
on?
with 4 picks.
What is going on? I know what's going on in today's episode.
Yeah.
This is one of the best episodes of all time, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so like I completely lost track. But so what I was saying was Tyreek Woolen kind of holds it down. So Mike Williams would definitely move down for me. This is one of those games where, I get worried about Mike Williams sometimes. With or without Keenan Allen. I was worried about him last week, and that that turned out to be like
Warranted.
correct.
Yeah,
warranted. There you go. And this week I'm kind of feeling similar vibes, to be honest with you. Even without Keenan Allen. So I just say that I have him ranked up here because this is like a situation where like I can't sit Mike Williams. Like when Keenan Allen's out, like he's gonna be in my lineup because he can blow up, and he has, right? But this is another one of those situations where like I'm like, I'm not dying. I don't. If I had to bet on Mike Williams doing this thing, I would bet no. But he has to be in my lineup. Anyway, going back to your original question, I would probably have Keenan Allen if he plays right around here, right around where Mike Williams is. Maybe ahead of Amari Cooper this week. I would probably have Mike Williams around, I would say the 18-ish, right ahead of Deontay Johnson, maybe right below him. So around that spot. That's kind of how I feel about him.
Yeah. So long-winded answer, but you got your answer.
Yes,
we know where we're putting him if he's starting.
Yes, you guys know after you already turned the podcast off. Amari Cooper, I have him at number 14 here against Baltimore. The reason why I have him so high, Baltimore is in the top half of defenses playing man coverage. James Bradbury's on the left side. You have Marcus Peters on the right side, and Amari Cooper runs most of his routes on that right perimeter. He's going to see more of Marcus Peters than he is Marlon Humphrey. So that's what I like. I want him to see Marcus Peters more. Marcus Peters is an older corner. He's been playing relatively well this year, but overall, the Ravens secondary has been giving up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. They have played better over the last couple of weeks, especially against the Bengals. But they didn't have T. Higgins healthy in that game. Jamar Chase, they just put 2 high safeties up there. He's not really an intermediate type of wide receiver where you're like possession type of wide receiver. Amari Cooper is, though. Right. And that's his game. And I think that this is one of those games where he could put up 8 catches for 100 yards in a tutty.
I think that's exactly his stat line from a couple of weeks ago. But
sounds about right.
I think that's dead on.
I said it right, though. Not a touchy.
You did.
But a tutty.
A tutty. But I do like Amari Cooper in this matchup. It's a divisional game. And we know Baltimore tends to kind of, at least their narrative this year is Baltimore has looked like more like the other bird team, the Falcons, not the Ravens, in the second half, and they let other teams score a lot of points in the second half. I wouldn't be surprised if Amari Cooper got off to a slow start. That's been his game so far, but Amari Cooper's been he's been really good, especially for where he was going. I think he's a PPR wide receiver 11 right now. Like he's doing his thing. It's just, he had 2 bad weeks that are really throwing off his reputation in the fantasy community. And, Jacoby Brissett is his quarterback. Maybe this week I'll be talking about Amari Cooper as a buy low, for
I don't think you'll be able to.
For when it depends. Yeah. If he has a rough game, maybe game.
Yeah, if he has a rough game, yes,
maybe.
Sure.
I'm saying not even just as like for the immediate future, but when Deshaun Watson comes back, if Deshaun Watson looks like Deshaun Watson, imagine what that's going to do for Amari Cooper. Like it could be huge. So regardless, if he has another middling performance like he had last week, 14 points, I think he could still buy low. And that's a long-term thing. But that's just, we'll save that conversation for Wednesday.
No, I'm with you for sure. Michael Pittman at number 15 here. The last time he played Tennessee, they double teamed the shit out of him, and he couldn't get anything going. Alec Pierce was the one, getting the targets in that game. We'll see what happens this week. I would assume Indy figures it out. Like, okay, this is what they're going to do against Michael Pittman. Let's move around a little bit more. Maybe put him in the slot a little bit more. Run different types of routes. So they kind of figure that out, and hopefully Michael Pittman can bounce back. Usually, like when you have like a wide receiver like get shut down in one game, the next time they go up against them, like it's not the same exact, situation, unless you have like a shutdown corner type of situation, which is not the case here in Tennessee.
Right.
Their secondary is rough. I would actually expect Alec Pierce to have a good game, if they're able to shut down Michael Pittman. And I do have Alec Pierce, I like him this week as a solid flex play. But I still want to, Michael Pittman went off last week. He did his thing. He was targeted a ton. So, you got to start him as a wide receiver 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to start him as a wide receiver 2. That's where I'd be happy starting him. I think you could have him as a wide receiver 1, in a pinch if you have to. Cooper Kupp's missing. If Cooper Kupp's missing, somebody that you drafted like Justin Jefferson's missing, and you have Michael Pittman, I think he could be a wide receiver 1 for you this week. I don't have that problem putting him there. I think he has the upside to finish within the top 10 this week because of the matchup, but also because Matt Ryan's looking a lot better. I feel a lot better about Michael Pittman. Obviously, it's easy to say that after a 26-point performance, but it seems like the Colts are finding their feet a little bit, and that is good news for Michael Pittman. I'm happy with him at 15. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing him float up towards the top 10 as the season goes on, if the Colts can continue to get better on offense.
Yeah. I have Courtland Sutton here at number 16. I think he can bounce back, but this is a tough matchup against the Jets. Brandon Ayuk, I love him this week, and we've talked about him, and we talked about Deebo already. This is just, obviously he did his thing last week, but, and seeing that was great, going into this week. We know that he's capable, obviously, but, going up against Kansas City, they've been giving up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. The Chiefs are going to put up points against this banged-up 49ers defense. I sound like a broken record. I said it a few times already this week. But Brandon Ayuk, I think, I have him pretty high here. That's 17. There are a lot of wide receivers on bye, so kind of elevating him a little bit, which in a normal week, he'll probably be around a low-end wide receiver too. But, 17 this week, I think. Deontay Johnson at number 18. I think, with Kenny Pickett back, I think Deontay Johnson is going to be able to get his targets. Christian Kirk at 19. We're looking for a big bounce back game from Christian Kirk at some point. I think it's going to happen. I think he's a solid buy low right now before Sunday. I think, if you're looking for a wide receiver, I think he's a good buy. Al Lazard. Actually, I'm going to write that down real quick because I need a wide receiver. So go buy Christian Kirk. Okay.
Al Lazard at 3:00.
On my
to-do specific time. It's like go buy Christian Kirk in fantasy.
I do that.
Oh yeah, you prescribe a time for your wheeling and dealing.
I do. Alan Lazard at number 20. I really like Alan Lazard this week. Okay, I like him, and I like Romeo Doubs. I think I have Romeo Doubs at, what do I have? I have him at 24. But Alan Lazard at 20. I think this Washington secondary isn't great, especially on the perimeter. And when you look at like what they've been doing on the perimeter right now, so let's see. They've given up the 7th most fantasy points on the left side of the perimeter, the 8th most fantasy points on the right side perimeter over the last 4 weeks. And Alan Lazard, runs most of his routes on that right side. He kind of moves around a little bit, runs more than 50% of his routes on the perimeter. That touchdown that he caught last week was against the Jets, was from the slot. And that's because they schemed him up that way, which is a great play design because the Jets are very stout against perimeter wide receivers. That's part of the reason why you'll see that I have Jerry Jeudy relatively high and relatively higher than I normally do.
Right.
So yeah, so let's move on to 21 to 30 here. I had DeAndre Hopkins at 21. By the way, I didn't get to my rankings until like super early this morning. So like DeAndre Hopkins locked in at 21. Chris Olave locked in at 23. I would have had DeAndre Hopkins at like, I don't know where. Let's see where I would have had him. Like, to be honest with you, like, and you guys know how I feel about DeAndre. This week I probably would have had him right before Courtland Sutton, so I would have had him at 16.
Yeah,
I would say.
It's easy. It's easy. It's like, oh yeah, hindsight says we would have had him a little bit higher, but
we would have had him as a wide receiver 1.
Even at where we have him 21 for these rankings right here.
Yeah,
I don't think like that's that bad. You consider everything that's going on with the Cardinals. The offense didn't look good. We weren't sure how he's going to look coming back.
There's no way I would have started. There's no way I would have started Alan Lazard over him, Christian Kirk over him, Deontay Johnson over him, Ayuk, and Sutton with the bad matchup. If Sutton had a better matchup, I probably would have started him over Hopkins. But that is
true.
Chris Olave though, Chris Olave would not have it 23. He was locked in. So I use Fantasy Pros expert rankings. That's what they're called. And they get locked in after Thursday. So like I had to set it up before Thursday, and I didn't do that. So I would have had Olave probably at like, I would say, also like right there in front of Cortland Sutton, I would say. So I would have had Hopkins at like, 15 and 16. Him and Hopkins at 15, 16, something like that. I would have had Olave ahead of Hopkins though.
Yeah,
I would have, to be honest with
I
you.
think Olave, I think that he's ranked a little bit low for my taste. I'm not. It's easy, to say because, like I said, hindsight is 2020. But I think 23 is a little bit low. I think he's a mid.
Oh, it's way too low.
Definitely.
He should be 23. So these are consensus rankings. Like he was actually 23 in consensus rankings coming into the week, which is crazy. He should be a high-end wide receiver too.
Yeah, as long as Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are missing time, like how could you not?
Exactly. Romeo Doubs, we talked about him. I really like the perimeter wide receivers for the Packers this week to bounce back. I have him at 24 here. Juju Smith-Schuster at 25 against the banged-up San Francisco defense. Curtis Samuel, who, by the way, he has a new quarterback, him and Terry McLaurin. I have him at 26 and 27. Taylor Heineke is going to be coming in. He targets the slot, at a career rate a little bit higher than Carson Wentz. So we could see Curtis Samuel start to do his thing again. Jerry Jeudy at 28. The Jets' vulnerability in their secondary is the slot. So I think Jerry Jeudy can potentially be a solid play this week. I get it. Denver's offense looks terrible, but I'm still going to have him in my lineup if I have to. Michael Gallup at 29 against Detroit, who could be doing his thing as a top 30 wide receiver with Dak back. And then Rondale Moore at number 30. This was also locked in, but this worked out. But I would have had Rondale Moore a lot higher too, to be honest with you.
Right. And I would have too. I want to say I wouldn't have because, we're supposed to be the experts. We would have been feeling imagine how good we would have been feeling, after that first 31-yard reception on the first drive. We've been like, man, he's in for a big day. It's like, no, that's just tough.
No. Yeah. He consensus had him at 30. I would have had him at, I would say, around 21. I mean, after Chris Olave. Actually, no, I would have had him maybe around 25. Between Juju and him, I probably would have played Rondale. Between Dubs and him, I would have played Moore. Yeah, I would say that.
I would have put Chris Olave over Moore by a long shot.
Oh, yeah. Chris Olave would be at 15. Let's assume Chris Olave was at like 15, right?
Everybody,
but you have like Jacoby Myers, Romeo Doubs, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he would be in that tier.
It seems like everybody's at 15. Oh, yeah. Chris Olave, I'd have him at like 16.
Well, just DeAndre Hopkins.
And DeAndre Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins and Chris Olave.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to tight ends. We have Mark Andrews at number 1, who, by the way, didn't practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Is there any news on Mark Andrews? Let's see.
Check on that.
Let's check real quick. Did he practice? Is he practicing today?
Get some live updates.
All on practice for the first time this week. Mark Andrews is practicing. He missed 2 days. It looks like he should be on track to play. So that's good news. For whatever reason, if he misses, Isaiah likely would be the play. Travis Kelce at number 2 here. Zach Ertz I had at number 3. George Kittle at number 4 against Kansas City. I think they're going to throw the ball a ton in this game. David Njoku at number 5. Baltimore has been, not so great against tight ends. So I think David Njoku can continue to have a good year. Robert Tonyan at number 6. This is the highest I've ever had him. His route participation went all the way up to 80% this past week, which is amazing. That's what you want to see. Hopefully it stays there, because if it does, he's going to be in here every single week as like a top 6, top 7 tight end, maybe even higher, because he's always been targeted at a high rate per route run. And if he's running more routes, guess what? It means more targets. So Robert Tonyan is going to continue to do his thing. Good matchup against Washington. Gerald Everett at number 7 here against Seattle. Seattle's been the worst team against tight ends. So I'm good starting him over Kyle Pitts, who I have at number 8, followed by TJ Hawkinson and Pat Freiermuth, who should be coming back this week.
Yeah, so I have both Gerald Everett and Kyle Pitts on my team, and I'm starting Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
I'm starting him with hope that the touchdown will give him a little momentum. I like Gerald Everett. I just think that, the Chargers offense hasn't been amazing like I wanted it to be. So we'll see how that goes. It might be another Austin Eckler day, but who knows? I mean, I've kind of pumped the brakes now with Donald Parham back. And obviously,
let's make a bet. Let's make a bet. So we're making a bet right now. Okay. Gerald Everett.
Gambling man. But we'll see. Let's see. What is it?
Versus Kyle Pitts.
More
the
loser.
Points? More fantasy points. No, I would say this. Okay. I'll give you I'll give you. No, I can't. I'm not going to give you a handicap.
Don't you dare say
We just-
target share. Like, you can't do that.
No,
Demon.
no, target
Come
share.
on.
No. Of course it'll be fantasy points. I was going to give you a handicap of a couple fantasy points. For
Oh,
context.
okay.
But I don't want to do that. We're going 1 for 1 here, right?
All right, tit for tat. And what does the loser do?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out because we'll figure it out.
A blind
We'll
bet.
figure it out. Blind bet.
we'll see how it
I
goes.
don't know. I can't think of anything right now because I'm like pressed for time. I want to finish up the podcast.
Yeah.
Hayden Hurst at number 11, Evan Ingram at 12, Taysom Hill at 13. I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
You put tight end in quotes. He did end up scoring a touchdown in the game there.
Yes, he did.
But Evan Ingram, running around on every route on a bunch of dropbacks, 80% route participation. Same thing with Hayden Hurst. Daniel Bellinger at number 14. I think he's a solid streamer this week, with all the tight ends on bye. Hunter Henry would be in play if Jonnu Smith is out again, or if he's still banged up going into this game, which it seems like he is. He hasn't practiced in full yet. We'll see what happens today. I'll, just keep an eye on that. Yeah. Dalton Schultz at number 16. He is not carrying an injury designation as of right now. So he could play and Dak is back and maybe, they recreate the magic that they've seen because only magic can make Dalton Schultz fantasy relevant. Greg Dulcich at number 17. He made his debut last week as a rookie, came through, scored a touchdown, first touchdown of the game last week. So he could, he did supplant Albert O. It's his, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Mike Gesicki at number.
Kind of exciting,
It is kind
even
of
though, even though Albert O is, I was kind of higher on him.
Forget Albert O. Albert O's gone.
Greg Dulcich is the new cool long-haired guy.
By the way, if you looked at my rookie draft kit, he was one of the guys that I was very, very high on. Yeah. I just don't ever bet on rookie tight ends to, do their thing in year one, unless they're like Kyle Pitts, right? Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about it. Mike Gesicki at 18. He might get traded. He's a trade candidate. You never know. He caught 2 touchdowns last week. But, Durham Smith, by the way, is in practice. So if he plays, then I wouldn't be putting Gesicki in my lineup this week.
Right.
Cade Otton at number 19. Cameron Brate is out. He might be out for a couple weeks. So Cade Otton, is in play as Tom Brady's number 1 tight end. And then Noah Fant against the Chargers at number 20.
Yeah,
that should do it.
About right. But with Dalton, one thing about Dalton Schultz, I think he might be a little low because Dak does throw to him a lot.
Oh, you didn't like me talking shit about Dalton Schultz.
You can talk shit about Dalton Schultz because he hasn't produced very well and he has been dealing with that knee injury. It's been on and off. But Dak does throw to Dalton Schultz a lot. We've seen that.
Well, last year I was referring to last year when I mentioned magic.
Yeah,
I thought it was magic last year.
Yeah, no, it was because it wasn't talent. It wasn't talent based at all. He was just getting the ball thrown to him a lot. So
I was high on Dalton Schultz coming into this year because I just assumed that it would continue. And, it can. I'm a little bit worried with the PCL injury that he won't be 100%, and maybe he'll end up splitting reps. They have a couple other tight ends there who are, who seem somewhat talented and athletic. So it's possible that he sees some rotation, but that remains to be seen with Dak. And hopefully he's okay. He's good to go with that knee injury.
Yeah.
But that'll do it, guys. Thanks so much for joining. We are going to continue to update you throughout the weekend. Make sure you sign up to my email newsletter because I'll be sending that out. Just go to upperhandfantasy.com. The newsletter thing will pop up, and you can sign up for that, and you'll get a bunch of injury news and a bunch of other tidbits as well. And yeah, that'll do it. Thank you to our sponsor, Preciser. Make sure you use Upper Hand there, and you'll get their pro package for 30% off for the first 3 months. And that'll do it for us. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Enjoy the weekend. I'll be going live on Sunday morning on Instagram starting at 10:30 Eastern time for 2 hours. And you can get your start sit questions off there. Or I'll just see you over on Instagram at Upper Hand Fantasy. So for Zach, for Faraz, see you later, guys. Have a great weekend. Peace.